right, welcome. 6:30, the meeting will come to order. Pasco School Board of Directors, thanks you for attending our regularly scheduled meeting this evening. I'd remind you that this is an open public meeting, and we record these for broadcast on YouTube. If you look up Pasco Schools, you'll find all of our open public meetings broadcast there, as well as study sessions, which are open public meetings that we hold before most board meetings on the second and fourth Tuesdays of every month at 4:30. This afternoon we had a good discussion on district portable use and the board's direction towards the district. So if you're interested in that topic, you'll be able to watch that again on YouTube or Charter TV channel 191 from today's date at 4:30 study session. It may appear at times that the board is moving quickly on some of the decisions that we make. We have had, as individuals or as a board, plenty of time to research through independent study or through district staff inquiries the topics before we vote on them. So again, sometimes it may look like we're making quick decisions, but if you go back and look at the work we've done or have any questions for us, let us know and we'll give you the history on the rationale behind our decisions. And finally, I would like to recognize the three student board representatives seated up here with us. They're not legally allowed to vote with the board, but they're an important part of our decision-making process, and they help give student voice to the board. And they're getting ready to have their first, what day is it? Your first student advisory council meeting? October 18th. They, along with Miss Whitney, are planning their own meeting for this council. It'll consist of high school students selected by principals and also others that have volunteered for this position from each school, each of the 4 high schools, to sit on a panel with these students, talk about issues that impact high school students at all 4 schools, and they'll compile that information and bring that to give additional student voice to the board. So we're excited for them and that process that they're undertaking. And with that, we'll move on to agenda item number 2, which is the flag salute. We have Robert Frost Elementary School Principal Nora Flores here, and she will introduce her students.
Board President Lerman, Superintendent Whitney, and members of the board, good evening. I'm Nora Flores, principal at Robert Frost Elementary. Tonight, to lead us in the flag salute, we have Cecilia Sandoval, Cheyenne Thornton, Adeli Galvez, and Alexander Martinez. These students were selected because they are peer counselors who help impact our school in a positive way. In their roles, they look for students who are making positive choices, being safe, working responsibly, and showing respect. These students had to apply to be peer counselors. They needed 3 letters of recommendations from teachers to be able to take this role. And again, they mainly help our students at our school make the right decisions. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, students. Would you guys like to lead us in the flag salute?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, before you students sit down, we're going to give you a little Pride of Pasco pin here, and the student board reps are going to bring you a pin up and take your picture. And then next, before you guys sit down, can you guys, if you have friends or family here this evening, you can go one at a time and introduce them and have them stand up, and we'll recognize your friends and family for coming to support you.
Okay. My mom is Lily that works at Robert Frost Elementary. This is my mom. Her name is Rosalinda, and she came to support me here to say the Pledge of Allegiance.
That's cute.
This is my mom, Patricia. She works at DaVita, and she came here to see me say the Pledge of Allegiance. This is my mom, Teresa, and she's here to journey to the Christ Road.
Thank you, Ms. Flores, and thank you, students, for coming to share with us this evening. You guys, Ms. Flores said that you guys created or filled out an application in order to apply for the current position and job that you have right now. So for each student that comes here, all the other students that are in the audience as well, we encourage you when you're in 11th or 12th grade, if you're still interested in student leadership and serving your fellow students, to apply for a student board representative position. There's 3 of them right now. There may be more when you guys apply. There may be less, but I'm guessing there will at least be 3. And we encourage you to apply for that position to learn not only about your community and your school district, but to serve your fellow students. Thanks again for coming tonight. Next, we have roll call. I'd ask Ms. Smith to please call the roll.
Present.
Dr. Richardson?
Present.
Ms. Lankin?
Present.
Ms. Gregg?
Present.
Mr. Lehrman?
Present.
Ms. Kudos?
Present.
Mrs. Phillips?
Present.
Ms. Rocha?
Present.
Thank you. Next, we have agenda item number 4, special recognition. We have Mr. Shane Ettinger here.
Well, good evening, Board President Lehrman, Superintendent Whitney, and members of the board. Tonight we have the honor of presenting a Partner in Kindness Award to one of our valued community partners. As you know, these PINK Awards are given to groups, organizations, and individuals who donate more than $1,000 in cash, goods, or services that directly benefit the students of the Pasco School District. Dutch Brothers Coffee has been a great community partner with the district for many years. They've served as peak partners with Chiawana High School and Pasco High School, and you've probably seen their Dutch Brothers trailer set up at Edgar Brown Stadium during football games and also at the schools for many of their big events throughout the year. Most recently, Dutch Brothers employees gathered up and delivered more than $2,500 worth of school supplies to donate to the district. Their truckload of supplies included dozens of boxes filled with markers, notebooks, binders, crayons, pencils, and just about every other school supply you could think of. I would like to ask Dutch Brothers representatives Megan Barnes and Danny McGuire to come forward tonight to receive a small token of our appreciation. On behalf of the Pasco School District, we want to say thank you to Dutch Brothers for your generous commitment to our students and our community. Please come forward. Mr. Lehrman, do you have the plaque?
Sorry. All right, thank you on behalf of the Pasco School Board for your generous donation of lots of time we know, and this monetary donation, but we know what you guys do goes above and beyond this monetary donation. And we really thank you. Let me grab you right at Pasco.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you again to Dutch Brothers for your generosity in helping and your commitment to our students. Tonight we also have the honor of recognizing that for the 11th consecutive year, Pasco School District has received the Partnership District Award from the National Network of Partnership Schools, or NNPS, at Johns Hopkins University. The success of this program is due in large part to the dedication of Special Programs Coordinator Lorraine Landon and Parent Engagement Coordinator Esmeralda Magana Valencia. I'd like to ask them to come up now to be recognized. In a letter to the district, NNPS Director Dr. Joyce Epstein writes, "This is Pasco School District's 11th Annual Partnership District Award. That's a remarkable record of sustained improvements in programs of school, family, and community partnerships throughout the district. Your district continues to grow its partnership program even when leaders change. In this way, you are showing that family engagement is as sustainable as a reading program, which continues despite changes in personnel, because it must." 2 district-level programs will also be featured in the NNPS national publication Promising Partnership Practices 2017. They include Knowledge plus Resources equals Successful Parent Engagement and the Meeting Opener PowerPoint. In addition, Franklin STEM Elementary has been honored as a 2017 Partnership School Award winner. Along with Franklin, 4 additional Pasco schools will also be featured in the Promising Partnership Practices 2017 publication for their outstanding Action Team for Partnerships programs. In fact, Pasco schools and the district have been represented in every edition of this Promising Partnership Practices publication since 2006. More than 90 excellent Pasco activities have been shared nationally by NNPS. Now I'd like to share some information about the award-winning programs in our schools. When I call your name, please come forward here. I know that not everyone could be here tonight, but we still want to recognize them publicly for their efforts. Emerson Elementary's ATP hosted their Breakfast of Champions, which provided parents and with an opportunity to learn more about the importance of the standardized tests that students take every year, starting in 3rd grade. Representing Emerson's ATP are Stacy Arts, Sean Murphy, Brooke Schultheis, and Alejandro Ortiz. Franklin STEM Elementary's ATP hosted a kite engineering challenge where students and their families engaged in the engineering process to build a kite together. Representing Franklin's ATP are Maya Ansong, Molly Wenzel, Sherry Grigo, and Deidre Holmberg. Livingston Elementary's ATP hosted Zoom into Engineering Week, where 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade students participated in activities with local engineers to become active scientists and to learn about STEM careers that they may want to pursue in the future. Representing Livingston's ATP tonight is Principal Scott Robb. Other members are Jordan Carter, Macario Hernandez, and Nicole Zorns. They're actually holding an ATP meeting tonight, so Mr. Robb is the only one who could join us. Twain Elementary's ATP hosted a Skittles Math Night, where something better than fingers and toes were used to help students solve math problems. This new technology involved using Skittles to work out math activities at each grade level, and it may be the only time when mathematics has been described as delicious. Representing Twain's ATP are Tyler Thompson, Janet Heitschmidt, and Principal Barbara Pierce. Chiawana High School's ATP helped to organize a spring cleaning day at the school. The Saturday morning activity included more than 140 students, along with 40 parents, teachers, administrators, and community members. Everyone who participated came away with a good feeling about giving back to their community. And representing Chiawana's ATP are Janice Holzerland, Angie Sessions, Rob Wallace, and Brian Meredith. We also have Principal John Walwork here tonight. Thanks to all of you for making such a difference in our schools and having such a positive influence on our students. Now, if we could get you all to group together in the middle, Tina will take a picture.
Let's have the board. You guys go ahead and stand up there. We'll go stand up there as well.
We'll stand out of the way.
We're partners. All right, again, thanks to Dutch Brothers, and also thank you to everyone who works with ATP and any programs that we have that partner teachers, staff, along with parents in the community. We know as a board that that's an important important part of our students' education. So thank you for the time that you guys put in into making these relationships work in the benefit of all the students of Pasco. All right, next we'll move on to agenda item number 5. We have approval of the meeting minutes from September 26th. I would entertain a motion.
Mr. President, I move to approve the regular meeting minutes of September 26, 2017.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve the regular meeting minutes from September 26, 2017. All those in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. Regular meeting minutes from September 26, 2017 are approved. Next, we have the agenda review.
So there are no additions or changes to the agenda tonight, and we will not be requesting an executive session at the conclusion of the meeting. However, I did want to call the public's attention to an executive session that happened prior to the board meeting under executive session RCW 4230-110-1G under personnel for the beginning of the superintendent's evaluation. I appreciate your feedback and your input into performance thus far and suggestions moving forward.
Thank you. Next, we have agenda item number 7, which is audience comments. In just a moment, I'll invite the audience to the microphone to address the board. At this time, you can ask questions of the board or address the board with any topic of your choice. If you would like to talk about any items under agenda items number 10, which is action items, or agenda item number 9, which is reports and discussion, please wait to that time, and I will again take audience comments after board discussion on those topics. Try to limit your comments to 2 minutes, and if you would like further discussion or contact with the board, ensure that your contact information is left in the back left-hand corner, your email address and or phone number along with your name. So at this time, the microphone is open for audience comments. Seeing that we have no audience comments this evening, we'll move on over to agenda item number 8, which is board communications, and we'll start with Dr. Richardson.
Thank you. Last week I visited a number of elementary schools, Frost, Emerson, Chess, Longfellow, and Captain Gray. Participated in the Macarena during a brain break, which was something I hadn't done in a long time, and observed a pacer, which I'd heard a lot about from my kids for many years, but actually observed Greg Olson do that with some of the students in PE. And if you have kids that are in elementary school or higher and you don't know what that is, ask them, and I'm sure they'll share with you what the pacer is. I also had volunteered to deliver Ready for Kindergarten flyers to some local pediatric practices, and I did that. Took them to 3 of the large pediatric practices in Pasco and continue to pass out flyers in our clinic as well. So I'm excited for the start of that and to see the support of our community. And I signed up myself for one of the classes at Virgie Robinson, so excited to see the success of that program.
I just wanted to share a little bit about, we had a meeting with the regional other districts, other board members, and it was at the Kennewick School District office, and we had an opportunity to tour where our science packets are put together for all. They put them together for all of the schools, including Othello and Moses Lake and all of them, where they put them together. So it was a very interesting warehouse. It was very interesting, and I was surprised that that's where they came from. I didn't know that's where they put them together at, but it was very interesting to see how they have all that storage and all those products, and they put all that together. It was a very interesting meeting.
I'll second that. It's thank the Kennewick School District for hosting that meeting, and then for a tour of that center where all of the science projects are kept during the year, and they explained to us a little bit about the program, how they put them together, send them out, and they'll bring them back in and refurbish the kits and send them out again. So it's a wonderful program, saves us a lot of effort, I'm sure, and all the schools, the participating schools are. Also in that meeting, we were So for those who are not familiar with WASDA, it's the State School Directors Association, and they'll have these regional meetings periodically where they'll give us updates on things that are happening around not around the state, but really what WASDA is doing. They put together model policies for us to help relieve some of that burden that we have. We've also finished a school director's self-assessment that helps us get some information on how we're doing. And they'll do these regional meetings and give us legislative updates and so forth. And just so we're all aware, I know President Lehrman and myself and Ms. Lankin were all there, but there's a lot of uncertainty around legislation still and about how the financing is, school funding is going to settle out. So we've got some opportunities there maybe to have some influence if we will make our voices heard. But I'm confident that we're not alone in the concern for what's going to happen with legislation and school funding. So I think the key for us is to be assured that others are in the same boat, and we'll work to do what we can to make this as painless, this transition as painless as we can, and be as diligent as we can in managing this, and not to get expectations too high, but not to be too discouraged either. So, but I'm sure WASDA will keep us informed. I think we've had some discussion with them that's been helpful to us so far, and just appreciative of their support and of their willingness to come and share things with us. So.
In the past couple of weeks, me, Vanessa, and Kristana, Mrs. Whitney had our planning meeting for the Student Advisory Council. And I've been planning for that too, like at home, coming up with ideas. Other than that, I've just been going to school, lots of homework, and working a lot.
These past 2 weeks, I got the opportunity in one of my classes to be the teacher for a day. And that was fun, but it was hard, all the planning that goes behind that. Also, I just wanted to remind the public that tomorrow at Pasco High School, we will be having the voice testing and the PSAT and the SFAB and other college readiness activities for the seniors. Also, next week, October 18th, we will be having a FAFSA night.
Well, these past 2 weeks and the next 2 weeks to come are actually going to be very busy for me in my school. On the 4th, I turned 17. I'm getting old, so. But everything has been going pretty well. School is school. I mean, I'm running low on sleep, but I'm still running, so. Actually tonight, though, something that I hope that everybody listening will go to, we're actually doing a Chiawana Wingstop takeover, and if you have not heard of that, 10% of all the proceeds will actually be going to the Tri-Cities Cancer Society, I think I'm saying that right, Center. So please go to that. If you don't even want to, if you're not even hungry, just buy something to drink. And yeah, so just go buy something. It's till 9 o'clock, so I hope to see you there. I might not go, I might be tired, but I'm there in spirit. And again, tomorrow is our PSAT testing for all Pasco School District sophomores and juniors, so wish us luck. Pink Week at my school is actually this week. We've actually been doing pretty good. We have an assembly on Thursday, and I know juniors are going to win, so fingers crossed. Gravel Pit is coming up. I want to encourage you guys all to go to that. It is Pasco High School versus Chiawana High School. You know, I'm from Chiawana, so I know who's going to win. But just on that count, that's been my weeks to come, so thank you.
Hey, can I just ask, so the Gravel Pit is Thursday, correct?
Yes.
It's not a regular
Correct.
Friday night game.
It's Thursday, 7
So
o'clock.
be aware of that.
And come see me at Wingstop after the game, because I work at Wingstop. Oh, and 10% also goes to your ASB and your leadership.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Hey, everyone, all of the Pasco High and Chiawana kids packed after the games at Wingstop every Friday night. packed. We like open the garage door and everyone's just like everywhere.
Safe place.
Well, I got to participate in a bond meeting this week, which wasn't a board activity. It was something that I wanted to do on a personal basis just to see what our community members and help out where I could with our community members. So that was a really great experience, and one that I so appreciate the community and the work that they do there to do what they can for our schools. So.
I was able to go out and visit Markham, so thank you for that tour. I don't often drive out that far on that road, and so every time I do, I'm just surprised. Like the rest of Pasco, we're booming houses everywhere, building houses everywhere. So if you haven't driven out on that road in a couple of months, you go out there and go, whoa, it changes. Those of you who drive out there daily, I know you don't see the drastic change, but it's like the rest of Pasco, so I was surprised by that, but I appreciate the staff showing me around their classrooms and sharing a couple hours with me there. Like Stephen Sherry said, went to the WASDA regional meeting, enjoyed touring where they build those science kits. We also had conversation, like they said, on well, I don't know if they said this, we had conversation on the ESSA, or the Every Student Succeeds Act. Which, if you're interested in that, that's the one nationally. Washington has this ESSA, but nationally it's what replaces the old No Child Left Behind in guiding. So you can Google that, look up what the state board is going to require there, and you can compare it to what we're doing. And it looks like to us, a bunch of us mentioned this at the last board meeting, that it looks like there's a lot of alignment with the planning that we've been doing. So you can look there to see how that would impact you. Also, we talked real briefly about at this meeting the House Bill 2242, which we've been looking at. That talks about the school funding. Probably most people here are interested either in their taxes, but also in how it funds salaries and stuff like that, how it funds programs, levies for the district. And at a high level, what we see, you guys can go Google this also, again, House Bill 2242, is that Pasco should see, most homeowners in Pasco should see their taxes go up in 2018, followed by a more significant reduction in 2019. So next year, if your taxes go up, it's not all because you look out and go, whoa, house prices are going up. House prices are going up. This is why my taxes are going up. I can't afford that. It's really not related to that. You're always going to own a certain piece of the pie of Pasco. So if everybody's house goes up 20% and we don't build any more houses, your piece of the pie is the same. Your taxes should stay the same. So that reduction that you're going to see, or that increase, I should say, that you're going to see next year is, if it goes through and is approved, House Bill 2242. And then again, the next year in 2019, you'll see that reduction in taxes. So we talked about that, impacts on funding. Next board meeting, if you're interested in this, we're going to have our board discussion on what dollar amount to pass for our levy. As a district, we're currently, I believe, taxed around $4.27, $4.30 per $1,000 of assessed value. This House Bill 2242 would cap the amount that boards can approve at $1.50. So that's a reduction you can see of almost $3 per thousand, and that's the reduction in taxes that you would see in 2019. But again, we as a board still have to approve that we want to pass the $1.50, and next meeting we'll talk about the pros and cons of that. The pro being, if you want to get the full state match, it's looking like you'll pass the full $1.50. But we'll have additional discussion on that. If you're interested, come to our next board meeting study session 2 weeks from now.
President Lambert, can I just comment real briefly that what would replace a lot of that would be the state matching that. And we're not just going to lose a ton of money for Pasco, but we're going to pay less. We would pay less taxes if all of this goes as they're planning, and we would receive a much larger portion of state funding for Pasco. So it's really a plus gain for us. Our local portion will just be significantly smaller, which is amazing for our community.
Thank you, Dr. Richardson. Anyone else? All right. Next, we're going to move on to reports and discussion, agenda item number 9. We're going to flip 9A and 9B here and start with 9B. We have Mr. Mark Garrett, who will give us our technology plan update.
Okay, perfect. I told the student board reps that I was going to geek out on them, so they got some warning. All right. So President Lehrman, Superintendent Whitney, members of the board, I appreciate this opportunity to update you on the information systems roadmap. Reflecting back on the prior year, it's definitely been a key year, and what I would consider the start of a digital transformation for our district. So a quick refresher on the development of the technology roadmap. The roadmap was developed in the 15-16 school year, and it's a 3-year work plan that we started last school year. So I'm going to tell you about what we did last year. The technology roadmap was a collaborative effort between IT and the instructional technology departments, and it involved several stakeholder groups. Participants assisted in identifying goals for instructional and operational, and then identifying initiatives that would drive those goals forward. The participants enriched those ideas, turned them, prioritized them, and then we mapped them out over the course of 3 years. So that became our 3-year work plan. 2 of the highest priority items for staff were access to student devices and in-building instructional technologies support, and you'll see how we've addressed both of those requests in the coming report. So the roadmap is made of primarily 3 components. We have vision, goals, and initiatives. They will all work together. Initiatives satisfy the goals of the organization, and then the goals get the organization closer to that vision. And you can see the vision up on the top there. And it's really, that vision is about creating a modern workforce and learning environment for our staff and students. So here are the goals that the stakeholder group helped in creating. Goals are, this is kind of a succinct version, they're expanded upon in the technology plan. On the operational side of the house, the goals can be summarized as improving operational efficiency, offering better service, ensuring a reliable infrastructure, and then enhancing our digital transactions and collaboration. On the instructional side, the goals are centered around building, supporting, and expanding those 21st century learning skills. I'm primarily going to talk about the operational initiatives, but you'll see how those initiatives have fed into both the operational and instructional goals. All right, so here's a summary of all the initiatives that we outlined in that year 1 of our work plan. We have a handful of initiatives that are in various stages of completeness, and then we've also completed some major initiatives. Earlier in this calendar year, one of those big initiatives was the Microsoft 10 or the Windows 10 upgrade, which is a huge feat. We moved, I think is in the matter of about 15 months, we moved 13,000 devices onto this new operating system. And a particular point of pride for the department was the method that we used. We used a very customer-centric approach. We allowed staff to opt in when they wanted to upgrade. That gave us time to communicate, offer some trainings, and staff to get comfortable with moving to that new operating system and allowing them to choose when they wanted to upgrade. Another cool thing that we found out after we upgraded, and talking to some state Microsoft representatives, we were one of only 3 districts in the state to move our entire fleet over to Windows 10. So pretty cool. We're very aggressive in bringing that modern tool set to our staff and students. You'll also notice several items related to our wireless network. The majority of our fleet is now wireless devices. At any given time, we have about 12 to 15,000 devices on our wireless network. So that's laptops, phones. When you include devices on our wired network, so that's desktops, printers, cameras, that number jumps to 20 to 24,000 devices on our network communicating at any one time. So we have quite a big network and lots of devices accessing that network. So the largest and most transformative initiative for information systems over the past year has been developing its strategy around cloud computing. Last year we took a deep look at all the cloud technologies available to us, identified where we saw opportunities within the district, and then how those cloud technologies could assist us in realizing those opportunities. So you can see the 5 objectives we identified, and we thought it was important enough to set its own vision. So again, creating that it ties into our overall vision, creating that cohesive digital ecosystem for our staff and our students. So in its simplest sense, cloud is it's almost a marketing term. It's thrown around very loosely. In its simplest sense, it's any time data or files are stored on in someone else's data center. We identified 3 phases moving to the cloud. That first phase is personal productivity, and the biggest component of our migration, of that personal productivity phase was the migration of personal storage from district data center to OneDrive. So this summer we had a big migration, big task for our staff. We migrated over 23,000 users, so that includes both staff and students. We moved 11 million files and 14 terabytes of data. A lot of information going up into Microsoft's OneDrive, their cloud environment. So what's cool about this is that this allows both students and staff access to their files anytime, any device, anywhere. So students don't even have to have Office. They don't even have to have a full computer to access their material now. They can access it and get that full Microsoft Office experience from a browser. So pretty neat. Another initiative of Phase 1 was the introduction of a single sign-on portal, and it couldn't have come at a better time. Nearly every curriculum adopted included a digital component, with some of our curriculum being entirely online. This image shows the growth in instructional applications from last year to this year. With all those instructional applications comes a different URL website address, comes a different username, comes a different password, and that's quite a bit for an adult to remember, let alone some of our youngest learners. So what our solution to this was, we launched a service called My Apps, and it allows staff and students to sign on to that myapps.psd1.org from anywhere inside or outside the district. They can type in their username, password, gain access. They have access to all of their instructional applications. They click on the application and then they're automatically signed in to that application. So a great way to save that time at the beginning of periods and get students onto task quicker. So later this year and next year, we'll begin to focus on phase 2. You can see it's the online collaboration phase. We're going to introduce tools like Teams, SharePoint, OneNote. These technologies are all about working collaboratively in a digital workspace. And the last phase is really probably the most exciting phase. It's where we're reaping the rewards of going to the cloud. It's the knowledge sharing phase. So there's this phase, it's really what happens is when you lift documents and data up into the cloud, they get categorized, they get organized, they get indexed, and you can search on them. So imagine performing a Google-like search across all the content in our district and picking out what you need. Pretty cool. It's also, there's a lot of artificial intelligence working in the background that is working to make knowledge from all of our data and our documents. So, for example, the example that I give regularly is if a staff member is working on a grant, they have that grant application saved in their OneDrive. They have some emails about the grant. They have they watched a Skype webinar about the grant. They took some notes in OneNote about the grant. Microsoft says, all right, this grant is really important to this person at this time. And so Microsoft goes, their artificial intelligence goes, it searches our data, just our data, looking for resources that can help that individual. And so say that that Microsoft AI component identifies a group that was started last year that was put together of people that were filling out that same grant. Person over here has no idea that group exists. Microsoft introduces that group to that person, says, hey, did you know that this exists in your organization? That person can connect to that group, connect to those other individuals in our organization, and gain immediate access to expertise within our organization. So that whole process of connecting the knowledge seekers to the knowledge giver or the knowledge within our organization is pretty crucial. Lots of opportunities there. So that's down the road. I wish it was now. But we're just taking the first step towards that. Staff support. Moving to the cloud-based platform, it's a change for staff and our students. We've offered support, how-to videos, video tutorials, in-person trainings like the one that we're offering this Friday to our classified staff. To kick off our phase 1, we offered a one-day mini conference, cloud mini conference. We brought in Microsoft certified trainers. We offered over 35 breakout sessions targeted at both certificated and classified staff. Great attendance, over 250 individuals attended. It really laid a good foundation for us jumping into that phase 1. Additionally, we recently hired in-building support staff for our middle and high schools. That's where we anticipate we're going to get the greatest use. So these individuals are going to be working with their colleagues and helping them learn that cloud platform and incorporate it into their classroom. So if you remember at the beginning of this presentation, I mentioned that one of the biggest areas of need that was identified during that roadmap development process was that in-building support. So this is an example of how we're addressing that. This year, device growth accelerated dramatically, and primarily because of two reasons. The adoption of several digital curriculum and assessment platforms, and the reduced cost of student devices. Now, the reduced price of devices is a direct result of us moving to the cloud. What happens when you move to the cloud? All the compute happens somewhere else. on other people's data centers, and so you need less powerful hardware in your device. Essentially, that device just becomes a conduit for accessing the internet. And so what we did last year, we went through a comprehensive evaluation and procurement process and identified a device that was very cost effective that still met our needs. You have those devices in front of you on that ledge. You can kind of get an idea for the form factor. Nice form factor. It's rugged. It includes a touch screen. So it's got all the modern features. And I'm happy to announce that we reduced the price of student devices 65%. So to put that in context and what that means, we purchased 4,000 devices this summer for that digital curriculum rollout. And because we were able to reduce the cost of our devices, we saved on that purchase alone $2 million. So pretty awesome to see the monetary benefit that quickly of going to a cloud platform.
How much does one of these cost?
$229.
So just so I'm clear here, so none of the computing happens here? This is just a conduit?
It's very minimal computing. So we still there's still enough hardware on that to run Microsoft Office and some basic applications. But basically the idea is that our students get onto that device, hop onto a web browser, and that's it. They operate in that web browser most of the time.
So we'll have to replace devices less often? Is that what I hear? Their life cycle?
I didn't know. They still get they still get used frequently, and our current plan is to still keep them on a 4-year replacement cycle.
But they won't become obsolete as quickly. So if they're not obsolete, I would assume we continue to use them if they're not broken.
If that's the case, then yes. But we're currently budgeting for that every 4 years. That's standard
To be
practice is
reevaluated
typically, yeah. You typically see 3 years in some cases, so we're extending the life of those devices.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
That's related to this. A few years ago, we were, and a lot of people were, we were too, talking about iPads, and then, it became not iPads, but just generic, PC type pads.
Yeah.
And it looks like we're kind of going away from that. Is it because of testing? What are the reasons for the shift again?
This is a great all-around device. It actually, if you flip it, you can flip it all the way around, and it becomes a tablet. It's touchscreen. We've gotten feedback from the buildings that having that keyboard, that hard keyboard, iPads have soft keyboards. Hard keyboard is more useful in more applications. And honestly, so iPads, you're looking at $400, and this is $230. So this is a much more cost-effective and universal device.
Is it a touch screen?
Yep, touchscreen.
So if the kids drop it, how sturdy is it?
So it's intended for that. It was built specifically for that K-12 use, and it meets mil spec guidelines, basically hardening guidelines.
That is such a great price. Can you offer that to families that need computers for their kids at home?
Yeah.
Part of the challenge is you have to be on the cloud, and that's the nice thing about this. But
what's nice is your kids get on computer on the cloud. I mean, they love it because they used to have to take their little thumb drive everywhere, and now they can just access it from whatever for their schoolwork. Yeah. So, it's just $229 is a fantastic price for a device that your kids can do their homework on at school.
And I've got to get a lot of credit to Glenn Whitcomb. We hired him last year. He's our IT operations manager. He spent about 10 to 11 years up in Othello, and he worked the vendor over well to get that price. So he deserves a ton of the credit.
So that's a no for families, huh?
Not that I'm aware of, but
Dang.
Put
yes.
together an outside of school group. I'm sure it's just volume.
Yeah.
They just need the volume.
It helps when you buy 4,000 devices.
So Mr. Garrett,
Yes.
14 terabytes is what I saw you transferred. It's a pretty small amount of data, so some businesses might transfer to the cloud because they have a lot of, engineering companies or something
Right.
might have a lot of data space, data storage requirements. Are we mostly transferring to this? I heard you say connectivity a lot. Is that the big benefit we're getting? We could buy 14 terabytes for almost nothing. So is there anything else other than connectivity that this cloud is helping the district with?
So honestly, I'd go back to those objectives, and it's meeting all of those objectives. And then I mentioned that whole idea of organizing our content. There's a ton of benefit when our content is organized. Granted, our content, it's a lot of office documents, which isn't a big amount of storage, but the sheer volume, or bringing some organization to it, and being able to pull that knowledge from that content is going to be important. And then, yes, the flexibility that we have, that our staff have. Let's see. So currently at the secondary level, we have one device per student. By mid-school year, we'll have one device per student in grades 3 through 12, and one device for every 2 students in grades K through 2. So even though we are technically one-to-one, we still distribute our devices out of a cart. So a charging cart sits in a classroom, and that's where the laptops live. So there's some inefficiencies with that. Each cart has 30 devices. Enrollment can fluctuate period to period. You might have 22 students in a class 1 period. Then you got 8 devices sitting static. Next period, you may have 32 devices, then you have 2 kids that don't have a device. So there's some inefficiencies with that. And we've been working with building admin on shifting the underutilized devices to ensure that staff and students have regular access to technology. And our next step is to gather a group of stakeholders and just explore that idea of that student device checkout model. And that'll be happening, that process will be happening this year. So information systems isn't all about devices and infrastructure. We've got a great software and data team as well. Data systems team handles everything from data architecting, reporting, and to building custom pieces of software. And the team is going to be key in our efforts to make digital process the norm. A recent example of their work is the digitization of the district discipline tracking process. And this culminated in the release of a new app this school year. Formally, discipline records started with the creation of a paper referral, and then were entered into up to 3 different data systems. The data systems team saw an opportunity, and we developed a custom piece of software that digitized the whole process and integrated it into our core operational information system, PowerSchool. So the new system has helped to standardize the discipline tracking process. It offers greater analytics than we've had previously, and it's removed an estimated 1,600 hours of data entry from our building admin staff. Pretty cool stuff, just a small example of how they bring value to the district. Lastly, here are the tasks outlined in our roadmap for the coming year. We'll be closing out several tasks from last year, continuing on that journey of digital transformation, and then beginning some new projects. We've accomplished a lot, very proud of it, and we're looking forward to continuing our efforts to provide value and great service to our staff and our students. Congratulations. You can proceed on to the next level.
Thank you, Mr. Garrett.
You bet.
Questions or comments from the board?
So did we equalize, in some of the past reports that we've had, we just had all of our schools at all these varying levels.
Yep.
So they're completely equalized now. All of our schools have the same access to the same amount of devices?
Correct.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yep. 1-to-1, 7 through 12, 1-to-1, 3 through 12 by about mid-year, and then two students per device, K2, across the board.
That is fantastic. When we asked to get close to a one-to-one level, I remember being told it would be an $8 million thing. We don't have the money for it. This is exciting. So
It is very exciting.
I don't really have a question, but more of like something that I've seen in myself and fellow peers. So with the My Apps, I have to say I really do love it because I personally use Google Docs at home, and when, you have to go through the whole transferring formats and stuff like that. So it did make it easier, but there is about, I want to say, at least a 30% of the time, which makes a lot of difference when you have essay due, where My Apps doesn't work at home or doesn't work on your phone. So it's not really a question, just something that I've experienced a lot, and I know a lot of other peers have experienced. So
Next time that happens, let me know. We can troubleshoot because it needs to be up and ready all the time.
One of the things you mentioned at the beginning was requests of the teachers, the in-building technology support. So could you comment on that and kind of what we're doing
Sure.
in addition to just
Sure.
the devices for students?
Sure. One of the examples that I gave in the presentation was that .2 tech trainer, and that's we got done interviewing for that position this week. So that'll be at all of our secondary buildings, and that's really kind of our first step in planting someone in at that building level to see how well it works. Hopefully we can expand upon that.
now, would this be the department concerning online textbooks also, or no?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So we have, I know personally in my U.S. history class, we have been having trouble accessing our online textbooks. And I know there are some students that don't have a lot of access to internet at home, or they have to go to the library to access their textbooks if they do. But they also have practices just on and on, things like that. I know that at my school there isn't, not yet, I don't know if there will be, hard copies for them to take home. Is there a possibility that we can get those for the kids who don't have 0 to none access of the textbooks online?
I know we're lacking a lot of our instructional leadership is gone, but I think the intention is to have a book at the building or a classroom set so students can take it home for the situations that you described.
Yeah, that's a concern with it's nice to put everything in the cloud because you can access it from anywhere. Some of the challenges, though, and maybe you can talk about this,
Sure.
so occasionally through email we'll get documents and we can open those, but it's difficult to manipulate those. Now, I don't know if that's true cloud computing, but that can be very frustrating when you're on a device and it's not like using Word that's native to your computer.
Yep.
And are we having any challenges with that?
I would say that that it's Microsoft Office 365. That's the cloud platform that we use. I would say it better addresses that, and you most often see that when you send an Office document to someone using an iPhone or or an iPad. And so all you really have to do is just install I believe it's a OneDrive application on your iPhone or your iPad, and you can have that more native feel. Once we get a lot better and more practiced at sharing documents, sharing links, you can click on that link from your email, and then a web browser opens, and you can edit it right in that web browser. So you do, it's better, but there are a little bit of sacrifices in look and feel when you're working in a web browser.
I'm sure these things will improve over time, too.
Yes,
because seems to be the way it's going. The other part of that is the connectivity, and I think you said we have 24,000 devices connecting.
Yes.
And some of those are phones, iPads, computers. I mean, we got 17,000 students plus staff, so not all of them have iPhones, and not all of them are on at the same time. But do we expect that to grow, and are we prepared to manage that?
We were prepared, I'd say, last year or the year before. So we've seen this coming. Really the past 3 years, we've been building our infrastructure to the point where we can operate in a highly saturated environment. So it's not just one device per individual. That individual also has a phone that's connecting to our network. So now we're assuming 2 devices for every individual, and sometimes 3. So we've done a lot to strengthen our network. This year on one of the initiatives, we'll be going out to bid to upgrade our wireless, just to stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah, that's how my computer at work. I don't have a computer. I have a thin client that's basically just accesses the internet, and it's frustrating when you lose connectivity or it's slow. And
definitely.
And just hope that's not too much of an issue, that we're preparing for that.
Has that not been? Because I know it's been an issue at some schools in the past. Is that all fixed now?
It definitely, it hasn't been a systemic issue. We've done a lot to strengthen our network. One of the examples that you saw that we completed is we essentially have 2 internet service providers now, or 2 separate physical routes going out of our data centers, one going out of Booth, one going out of Chiawana. If one fails or we have a service provider problem, we can still maintain connectivity. We're working under the assumption that our instructional and operational environments are depending on that network being up.
I heard you say classroom set earlier, and I started thinking about it. So quite a few of our classrooms at Chiawana do have a classroom set at the moment. But do you know if there will be a set in the library? Because some of the classroom sets, the teachers or administration isn't open for students to check out because, again, you have 30 books in the classroom or so, and let's say your internet doesn't work that day, what are you going to use? The class set. So nobody can really check those out and take those home. Will there be sets in the library that students could have for longer periods of time?
Are you talking about devices or textbooks?
Textbooks.
So Christiana, our instructional administrators, Mr. Bowles, is on at a conference, so we'll get information about how we're managing access to hard copy books. Mr. Garrett, that's not his department, so I don't want to put him on the spot to answer that question, but I'll absolutely get you an answer.
So this graphic right here is awesome. Thank you, Mr. Garrett, to you and your team. And I wanted to go back, as Ms. Phillips talked about in history, maybe a little more than 2 years ago, you came up here, and it wasn't this simple. We had numbers, and we as a board looked at it, and some of us may have thought what we saw was inequitable. And a lot of it had to do with we opened new schools. A lot of the money for opening new schools went towards computers, so we thought, well, maybe some of our schools that have more highly capable learners have access to more devices. And in that conversation, I apologize here, Mr. Garrett and his team had done awesome work on something else in utilizing grants and being really efficient and buying more devices. but some of us fixated on this. It wasn't this simple. Again, we didn't have 1-to-1 at 7 to 12 and 2-to-1 at K to 2, and so it looked to some like we had inequity. So we asked you to go look at it, and could we move devices from one school to another? You did that for us, and came back, and there was strings attached to some of these computers because they had been purchased with a certain color of money. So he ran into that roadblock, kept working. You and your team, I think, did an awesome job in utilizing what you had, being innovative and creative, and getting us to this point. So thank you to you and your entire team for doing that, and I think we're a lot better off than we were a couple years ago.
You bet. Good memory.
So the new goal should be to get rid of these and get everybody one of these, right?
That's a goal.
Because it seems, I mean, there may be 1-to-1, but everybody doesn't have their own personal device. It happens to be where they are. So there may be this idea that while we're 1-to-1 means everybody has their own device, but that's not necessarily the case.
It means that every child has access to a device in the classroom.
And that's true. And then that's what we're gonna start that process this year. Just take a look at that and just be very thoughtful about our approach to that.
While we're acknowledging Mr. Garrett's staff, I also wanted to take the opportunity to let the board know I've been doing my listening tour rounds out into the buildings, and both in writing and verbally have heard from 2 different buildings unsolicited feedback of just expressing gratitude for the customer service that our staff are experiencing from our technology department. And so in 2 not connected, not solicited opportunities, staff members have just been extraordinarily complimentary of Mark and his staff. So I wanted to acknowledge you and tell you thank you, and please pass along that gratitude to your staff.
You bet. Thank you.
I have to ditto that. I think I was in chess a couple weeks ago in the teacher lounge, and 2 different teachers, I didn't hear the conversation, came up and said, thanks to the district, thanks to the board and the district for the great strides made in providing the devices that they need to teach those kids. So again, you went above and beyond equity, and we actually took it here, it looks like, to equality, across the district. So thank you.
So that's a third. I was at Mark Twain and McLaughlin, and you're getting some friendly nods from the back there too. So you got some teachers giving you love in the room too, Mark.
I know.
We've got an awesome
cheer or something. This is huge.
Thank you.
All right. Any questions or comments from the audience on this topic before we move on to the next one? Seeing that we have no audience comments on agenda item number 9B, we'll move on to agenda item number 9A, outrageous outcomes. It's a data bite on math, and we have Ms. Michelle Whitney here.
Oh, this is scary. Why does it say this up here? Oh. Thanks. All right. Good evening, Board President Lehrman, members of the board. It's my honor to be up here tonight giving you an update on what is the mathematics outrageous outcome. I am going to apologize in advance. This is going to be a slightly redundant report from the outrageous outcome around reading that I did, I believe, at the last board meeting. But this one is focused on 100% of our students will pass algebra by the end of 9th grade. And we start off with some data here. This data analysis I approached slightly differently after a conversation with President Lehrman. So this is different than, it's a revision from the original board packet. So what I wanted to point out here is really what we're trying to do is show data benchmarking our performance in 7th, 8th, into 9th grade, and our goal is that 100% of our kids are going to meet or pass algebra by 9th grade. So 82.9% of our 9th graders in 2017 reached that goal, which I think is a phenomenal celebration. So, and what I wanted to add to that dialogue is if you look at the teal green bar in 2016 and compare that to the orange bar in 2017, those are loosely cohorts. So in 16, the teal bar were 7th graders. And again, when you compare that to the 8th grade group, there's a 22.7% increase in the number of kids passing algebra. So those kids that didn't pass in 7th grade then passed in 8th grade. And then you can do a similar comparison to the teal bar of 8th graders to the orange bar of 9th graders. And again, you can see a 26.8% increase of students passing algebra from 8th to 9th. So again, the goal is that by the end of 9th grade, those all of our students are passing algebra. So 82.9% is not a bad performance in that regard. This data is very confusing, and I apologize in advance. This data set will probably be replaced over time in our benchmarking system as the STAR 360 assessment comes online. I think that data will be cleaner and easier for us to understand. So what this does is that the attempt of this particular benchmark, the rationale for it was it's not enough for us in Pasco to say our kids are passing, because currently a D is considered passing. So what we want is to see an increase in the orange bars, which represent those students who are getting an A, B, or C in both semesters of algebra. So the orange bar represents a student who took algebra and received an A, B, or C grade in both semesters of algebra. The teal bars represent a student who in one semester maybe got an A, B, or C, but in the next semester maybe received a D or an F. So the teal bar is representing a performance that's split across those two grade bands. And then the purple bar is representing students who received a D or an F in both semesters of algebra. So we would want to be seeing a decrease in the purple. You know, we would really rather our students not be getting an A, B, and a C in one semester and a D in the second semester. We really wouldn't want to see. We really want to see an increase in the orange bar. So you have in 7th grade 16 and 17 comparison there, there's a slight decrease in the number of students earning A's, B, or C's. So for that, we've labeled that data as a red area, and certainly we want to take a look into what happened. These kinds of comparisons are difficult because they're different groups of kids. This is not cohort data, and this data isn't easy to look at that way. So these are different groups of kids. We don't know where they started in kindergarten, et cetera. So there's a lot that goes into this part. In 8th grade, there's not an increase. There's a very slight decrease in the number of kids getting A's, B's, or C's. So it's a decrease, but yellow, we'll keep an eye on that. And you do see an increase in the number of 9th graders passing algebra with an A, B, or C. I think the important thing to think about and keep in context when you're looking at this particular set of data is in 7th grade, students who are taking algebra are our students who are opting into the very most rigorous course of instruction in algebra. Or in mathematics. That is considered an advanced class. So what you see there in the grades represent students who are opting into that rigorous course of instruction, probably have an aptitude or they like math or have an aptitude for it. In 8th grade, then those are students who, that's also a rigorous course of study. It's a level beyond the 8th grade standard math. So these are kids who, again, are taking advantage of our rigorous courses of study at the middle level. And then all kids, if they haven't passed it by 9th grade, you're in algebra in 9th grade, because we want our kids to have that access so that they can be successful later on with mathematics.
So I hope I don't confuse this issue, but I did want to talk about the conversation that Ms. Whitney and I had. And I was looking at this saying, okay, 2016, 2017, 9th graders, they're two different cohorts. We don't even statistically know what those two different cohorts have seen. So the difference between 2016 and 17 data for 9th graders or for 8th graders or for 7th graders doesn't really tell me anything. I think if you look at the 7th graders, 89.6 versus the next cohort, 81.7, totally different cohorts. But I guess what I would look at is, I said, okay, but let's look at it this way. In 7th grade, 2016, if you had 100 kids, 89% of the students that had passed algebra in 7th grade. Okay, then you go to the 2017 eighth graders. That's the same cohort. 90% of your kids already passed it. There's only 10% left, and those are the ones who are taking it again. Of those 10 that remain, 70% of them passed. So now you only have 3% that hadn't passed. So I said, if you look at it that way, your number went down. But as you go further on, you have a smaller pool of kind of, I don't know what you want to call them, your high cap or your higher learners. And so you really just passed, I mean, it looks like it's going down, but you passed, if you combine those numbers together, almost 100% right there was the conversation we had.
Thank you.
I think Mr. Christensen and I are kind of like shaking our heads, because really you can only assume that if you know how many students we're talking about percentage-wise. If you go back to your last slide, this one, because this was an issue we discussed last year about, and it surrounded placement of correct placement of middle schoolers in algebra, because the numbers were crazy, like a super low percentage were actually passing with a high grade. And so percentage, we can't really assume that unless we know what percentage of students this is related to, because it could be, was this 25% of 100, and then we assume that some of those went on to the next cohort, or is this a very small number and the rest of the next cohort is a brand new? I mean, you only can really make those assumptions if you have the number of students this percentage represents. So again, numbers can be tricky.
So again, while we're so grateful to have Star 360 coming on board, and we'll be looking for ways to maximize that particular set of assessment tools for us. The other thing that the Star 360, if I'm understanding correctly, I'm looking at Shelley, is it'll give us the opportunity to analyze some strands. So we may be able to pull data out specifically and look at the algebraic sense strand, for example, which again, when you're talking about, certainly there's foundational skills that build students up to being able to be successful in algebra, but it'll be some data, I think, that will be very interesting. So again, I would anticipate as a board that these data benchmark sets will change and evolve over time. This was our first stab at identifying some data to help us have some dialogue around how are we doing up against those big, gigantic 100% gaudy goals to 100% ninth grade.
This is classroom grade, correct? This is not a test of...
Correct.
So, okay. Yeah.
Correct.
So it's good information,
Right.
and it's a place to start.
It's a place to start, absolutely.
Which
Yes.
we have to get right, because we could just grade easier because we want more kids to pass. So we have to really be cautious, but it's a good start.
Yeah, I trust our teachers are doing the job. It's just that we need to be aware that this is not off of some
No.
standard test.
Right. So speaking of standard tests, this Walk Kids data is a standard test that our kids get, and this is 2015 in comparison to 2016. The orange represents students who are exhibiting skills in mathematics that would be expected of 4-year-olds. The teal color is skills expected of 5-year-olds. So you do see an increase in the number of kids who are exhibiting skills that we would expect of a 5-year-old, and for our definition, we have said that that's what we would consider ready for kinder. So there was an increase of 5.3%. Again, there's a lot of assumptions and areas of the data that you could talk about, but as just a kind of high-level analysis, that's what we're seeing. The next few slides represent, this is the redundant part of the presentation, and I apologize. Now, part of it is an apology, but part of it is also very intentional. As a district, we took on a body of work over last year that was really wide. So the intentional target and focus for us was to get really narrow in focus and get really deep. And this slide represents those things that you heard about in study session last time we were together, and then I reported on briefly during the board report, that have to do with our pre-kinder initiatives. I think the piece that I want to highlight is, so how is the training for daycare providers around mathematics, what are we doing differently in those trainings that align with this goal? So, for example, there were 2 trainings that were identified that had to do specifically with training our daycare provider partners around number sense, the concept of number, etc. So the trainings that our daycare providers are receiving are specific not to literacy. There are some that are specific to literacy, but there's also some that are specific to mathematics. So while we're while it's the same initiative, there's components of the initiative that are targeting the mathematical understanding of our students. So for example, in the Kaleidoscope Learn and Play groups, parents are learning, like one of the strategies when you're at the grocery store and you're putting apples in your cart, that you count with your students. We're getting 3 apples today, let's count them. We're getting 3 apples today, let's count them together, 1, 2, 3, and you put them in your cart. So it's exposing kids to the concept of number. The other initiative that you've heard us talk about is what we call the foundational experience for all Pasco kids, which is a combination of the core curriculum adoptions we've done over the last couple years in mathematics, Agile Minds, and math expressions, but also coupling that with frameworks. We started out with rigorous curriculum design. We're shifting now into the Pasco curriculum guides, and our teachers have just been really instrumental in putting their expertise and artistry to the standards and the curriculum materials and creating a foundational experience for our Pasco kids. One of the things that's unique to this specific initiative to mathematics is mathematics teachers talking to us about the need to do some very clear vertical alignment of those foundationary skills that need to happen in the early grades for kids to be successful in those advanced math classes. So we'll rely on our teacher experts to integrate that into the Pasco curriculum guide work as they continue to do that over time. This graphic is one that we've seen over time. It represents that core instructional experience that's in the center of the 2 diamonds, and then it represents our responsibility to intervene on either side of that core instructional experience, either by offering rigorous courses of study, like you heard me talk about algebra and geometry at the middle level for high school credit, and then that feeds a rigorous and advanced course of mathematics at the high school, but it also speaks to our desire to intervene for kids who are needing some support below the course so that they can get like an on-ramp caught up. And so one of the interventions, and this is just one, we've talked about Read 180, there's also a Math 180 intervention, but there are many other math interventions that our teachers are using, including differentiated instruction right in the classroom, just when they're noticing kids aren't mastering a concept or a standard, doing flexible grouping, providing additional support, etc. So our teachers differentiate on the fly. We have specific published interventions that we use, and then, for example, Math 180, that's an online mathematics intervention. Lastly is professional development, and as promised, Suzanne Hall will be in front of you at our next board meeting to go in deeper, but we're providing opportunities for teachers to understand the Washington State Learning Standards. We're continuing to really dig into our new teacher training and mentoring. You had a report in that last year. We wholly recognize that while we've gotten started, we're in the infancy phases of developing that program. We need to continue to develop it so it's robust and a lighthouse for Washington State, and I believe we have the expertise to make that happen. We also have mathematics coaches. Those are new to us. We've just identified a coaching model, and we'll continue to refine how our mathematics coaches work with our teachers to make sure that it's a value add for our teachers, and that the math coaches are getting to apply their expertise into the classroom. We will continue to work on identifying a predictable continuum of professional developments for our teachers. We offer a lot of different professional developments for our teachers, and we just need to streamline and make that public for everyone. So with that, I'll say thank you for this evening and answer any questions that you may have.
One thing I thought was interesting is that our graduation rates were really similar to our 9th grade pass rates. I would bet that that's a fairly strong correlation between those numbers. It would be interesting to find that out.
Yeah.
Because I really feel like if we can get that 9th grade math rate up, and our kids are going to feel more successful, they're going to be more likely to graduate. There's a drop in the 7th and 8th grade scores. A lot of times we put in a new curriculum. I can't think of the word.
Implementation.
Thank you. Implement a new curriculum. Those scores drop. Is that what we attribute that to? And then what do how did we get the higher scores in 9th grade, the higher passes from last year? Do you have any this is really what I want these things for, is to say, this is where we think we are, this is where we think what happened, this is what we're going to do differently, and then we're getting the data goals for these in January, correct?
Correct.
So do you have any explanation on that?
I don't, but I absolutely have experts that can give you that. I think it's probably a combination of a lot of things, and we can dig into it. I think the thing that's difficult, Amy, is I explained kind of the limitations of this particular data set, and there's a lot of factors. So to drill down to a specific instructional practice or a program practice that we need to change with these particular data benchmarks is a challenge, and I think we might be stretching a little, but we definitely can do an initial analysis. And again, I think the work is really around getting the right data benchmarks that have a better predictive and correlative set of statistical analysis under it. For example, the STAR 360, it's nationally normed. It has a predictive quality to it where you can take a look at what your kids are scoring on the STAR 360, and it'll say, well, if you have if kids are scoring about here on STAR 360, this is what you could expect their SBAC performance to look like. This data is a little bit limited in that regard, and so, but we can definitely dig into even this and see what we can find for you.
So how come we don't use the SBAC data for 7th, 8th, and 9th grade for this? Because it seems to me would be more accurate than whether or not they passed.
Because the goal is around algebra, and the SBAC evaluates far broader than just algebra, and there's no strand data back from SBAC to be able to even pull out the algebra strand and say this is the performance of our students in algebra. So again, we're limited, but I think we're this close to just having a very robust data analysis system to apply to the outrageous outcomes, and we look forward to continuing to refine these so we can do exactly what it is that you're asking for.
It still might, even the 5th, 6th, whatever grades, and the data just from math might, whether or not they're increasing or decreasing, whatever, it might. I think it's very applicable, really, if these kids are going to be able to take algebra by their freshman year, the data from 3rd grade math is going to be applicable. So maybe it's something we can look at with this at a later date.
Yeah, and again, I guess the caution around the SBAC is it isn't like the MSP of old. Like MSP, we used to get these great strand data reports back, and they were real usable. We're a little limited in that regard, so we can definitely look into that, and I'm looking forward to creating a very robust, relevant, and valid set of benchmarks to go with these reports, and I think we've learned a lot in the last year in putting these together and how we can refine them and make them better.
Yeah, I still think it might be really good to also include some of that younger data in.
Yeah, I
if it's
don't
not
disagree.
strand data.
Yep.
That is applicable. Any math data is applicable to algebra down the road. So great, thank you.
Maybe another, I don't know what to call it exactly, system of study to go along with maybe Math 101 and Agile Mind. I know a lot of the teachers at my school and the math teachers have been using Delta Math, and a lot of the kids seem to like it, and the class enjoys doing it, and the teacher can monitor where you're at, what you're doing. So maybe just a suggestion there. So
Thank you.
So just a couple of comments. So this looks better than the data we saw last week in reading, I think, which is good. A wise man once said, where progress is tracked, progress improves. And I think this is going to be very helpful for us. It gives us something to focus on, and when you focus on it, your progress is going to improve. And I think this will be a great thing, both for reading and for math. And so thank you, and look forward to great results in the future.
It's my honor.
And the most important number there went up. Our 9th grade, it went up pretty. 5% was pretty good. So that was great to have that many more kids passing algebra by 9th grade. So that was fantastic.
I like that, where progress is tracked. I think you could add where progress is tracked and reported improves more quickly. That'd probably be the final.
I was trying to remember the second part. I didn't want to make a mistake. Thank you.
Something like that.
Thank you, Ms. Whitney. Any questions or comments from the audience on this topic to the board? All right, seeing that we have no audience comments, agenda item number 10 is action items. We have no action items this evening. Agenda item number 11, we have the consent agenda. We have personnel, warrants, second reading of 3417, catheterization, 3418, response to student injury, 3419, self-administration of asthma and anaphylaxis medications. We have board policy revision 9250, naming of facilities. We have the 2017-2020 contract with the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 280 for transportation. We have resolution number 942, acceptance of Pasco High School Ceiling re-roof project. We have the resolution number 943, acceptance of the sidewalk improvement project. We have the senior center alterations project change order number 1. We have the out-of-country overnight student travel for Chihuahua High School International Club to Japan. We have the overnight student travel McLaughlin Middle School FCCLA students to help plan and organize state leadership held in March 2018 in Leavenworth, Washington. Overnight student travel to Ochoa Middle School at Natural Helpers Camp in Rimrock, Washington. Out-of-state overnight student travel to Chihuahua High School and Pasco High School Distributive Education Clubs of America to the Western Region Leadership Conference in Phoenix, Arizona. And we have the overnight student travel for Chihuahua High School Marching Band to the Pacific Northwest Marching Band Championships in Spokane, Washington. I would entertain a motion.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second the motion.
There's a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented. Additional board discussion. Ms. Smith, please call the roll.
Yes.
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 All right, next we have future agenda items.
So at our next board meeting, we will have a study session. Howard Roberts is going to be in front of the board talking about the levy. Mr. Lehrman, or President Lehrman, shared some information about that, and Mr. Roberts is going to start that process with you in preparation for an upcoming levy. The levy resolution, the very last opportunity we would have to pass a levy resolution is December 12th. It has to be to the officials on December 15th, so that would be cutting it really closely. So just so that we're all aware of the timeline with that, but he'll start that conversation on the 24th. As promised, Suzanne Hall will be in front of you talking about professional development. Vice President Phillips and Board Member Christensen will be presenting Superintendent Evaluation Tool. It's been working really hard on that over the last year and doing a deep analysis in that tool, so they'll be bringing it to the board for your consideration. And the data bite will be focused on the Read 180 data, and Mr. Bowles will be presenting that. And just a little preview of our first board meeting in November. We've tentatively scheduled another levy study session because, again, we're on kind of a tight timeline. Outrageous outcomes for 9th grade, so I can take a look at that correlation between the math. And then Alma Duran is going to do a presentation for us on the Parent Education Center and that program's expansion. So we're looking forward to that.
And no additional executive session. As mentioned earlier, agenda item number 13 is the executive session, RCW 423110. Was it G? We discussed personnel prior to the meeting. And with that, we would encourage you, like we mentioned earlier, there is a gravel pit game this Thursday at 7 p.m. If you want to see Pasco and Chihuahua play and be part of our exciting school community that we have here, we'd love to see you there. And also, being a Cougar, I have to say, go Cougs Friday night. For those of you who are interested there, no, I see some heads shaking no. All right, well, go Cougs. And thank you again
Even you
for
Husky
attending this
fans
morning.
Should be Cougar fans.
Meeting adjourned.
Because the better the Cougars do, the more impressive the win, if there's a win at the end of the season. So
That's true. If you're a Husky fan, you have lots to celebrate also.
Remember, everybody, there's still 56 minutes before Wingstop Takeover ends. You can still get in there, get you some wings, something to drink, some fries. Just remember, thank you.
And we also have potato salad, coleslaw, burger baked beans. We have rolls, brownies.
We should get an endorsement from Wingstop.
Don't eat this late at night. It's bad for your health.
I made the pasta.